Brands aren't built from a spreadsheet. Brands aren't built from behind a computer screen. The way you recognize opportunity is by not sitting behind your computer 24 hours a day and being in your market.
Hi, I'm Jason Pfeiffer. On today's episode of the Uncharted podcast, we have Michelle Ivey, the woman behind Illegal Mezcal, who also helped launch Megan Thee Stallion's tequila brand, Chicas Divertidas.
We took a neighborhood approach and we wanted to win neighborhood by neighborhood. And in my space, brands are built in the bar. Brands are built by bartenders across the bar. They're the ones that are out there by the thousands advising people what to choose off of a menu. That is really how you win, unless you have the millions and billions of dollars it takes to do it another way.
Right.
But your distributor is not going to sell your product for you. They don't do it. Until you reach a certain tipping point, you will be the one that is doing all the sales. You will really be the one that's out there hitting the streets. I've spoken to beverage founders who have said, I just thought I would create this beautiful thing, and once I got into a distributor, I would have won.
Right. Sure.
No, you just got started.
If you were releasing a CPG product that wasn't carried in bars, it was just kind of traditional retail, how would you approach it?
I mean, that's my world. So I do think people should.
How do you succeed in a crowded category? This is the question that basically every founder has to grapple with. Yes, possibly you have built something that is unlike anything else in the world, but probably what you have done is you have entered a marketplace with a product that you believe is superior to others, or at least that you have a superior story to others. And then it is about making sure that consumers know you and pay attention to you and want you over everyone else. And how do you do that? I feel like it's a kind of magic to be able to do that, frankly, because you see these brands, let's just say a tequila brand or a mezcal brand, who can enter a marketplace. And even though those shelves are as crowded as can be, they stand out, they draw the attention, they get that exit. And you wonder how? Today, that is the conversation we are having. My name is Jason Pfeiffer. I'm the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine and also the chief content officer at Uncharted. And on this podcast, what I do is I bring in incredible members from Uncharted to have the kinds of conversations that we have at the dinners and at the events, where we just get to know how someone thinks, how they operate, how they succeed. And today, I am with Michelle Ivey. Michelle Ivey has built an incredible career in primarily alcohol, but now also non-alc as well, doing exactly this thing that I've talked about, which is succeeding where there is so much noise and managing to stand out. She's exited to Bacardi. She has partnered with Megan Thee Stallion. She is doing all sorts of incredible stuff, and that's what we're talking about today. Michelle, thank you for being here on the Uncharted podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Okay, so Michelle, first, lay out your like incredible accomplishments in beverage so people understand where you're coming from.
Well, I started a very long time ago as a dive bartender at 18 years old. It's the way I put myself through college. And I chose the very marketable degree of philosophy because I like to read and talk day behind the bar with that philosophy degree. And as I did, I worked my way up through hospitality and moved into operations, and I happen to be somebody who likes to tell people what to do. So I really built a career then in consulting for optimizing other people's hospitality operations. And through doing that, I really became an expert in seeing how things moved across the bar and how the consumers interacted with bartenders and how things worked inside of that space. I ultimately helped someone liquidate several of their businesses at one point and found myself in a very good space where I'd planned to take some time off. And instead of doing so, I met a man named John Rexer, who at the time was creating a product called Illegal Mezcal. And I joined him as part of the founding team there. And we built that brand in a very nascent mezcal category. We launched in 2010. We built that till 2023 when we sold to Bacardi. Very successfully. It was a great transaction. Since then, I have, as you mentioned, I helped Megan Thee Stallion launch her tequila with Rock Nation last year. That was a wonderful project and a great experience. Then since then, I've also now joined a product called Lake Hour, which is a spirits-based RTD founded by Wyatt Russell and Richard Peet. I have joined them. They are about 18 months in market, so still early days. I've taken over as CEO. And I've also launched my own new brand about 6 months ago called Como No. And that is my first foray into non-alc. It's a caffeinated sparkling water that we are taking to market here in New York City.
So when you heard my intro about competing in a crowded category, I'm curious what came to mind. Like, how did you think about as you got into CPG, what it's like to try to get on those shelves. You come from hospitality, so you know there are endless options.
Mhm.
There's a bar full of bottles. It's very hard to stand out.
Yes. In my space, brands are built in the bar. Brands are built by bartenders across the bar. And the space you want to win is that bartender's heart and that bartender's mindset, because they are the ones that are out there by the thousands advising people what to choose off of a menu. And so if you can know how to play in that space, that is really how you win and how you start to gain mind share, unless you have the millions and billions of dollars it takes to do it another way.
Right. So it's a ground game, essentially.
Yes.
Let's just go back to Illegal Mezcal. What were you doing to convince bartenders to serve that mezcal and not the bazillion other options?
So we launched that mezcal here in New York City. We took a neighborhood approach and we wanted to win neighborhood by neighborhood. So we would go into a neighborhood like Williamsburg. We had a very small team, 4 or 5 of us, that also all came from the hospitality background. We would host events with bartenders where we educated them on the brand. We were a very lifestyle-oriented brand before I think that was broadly being applied to spirits brands. It is now. This was 2010, 2011. I mean, we barely had social media. So we were actually physically in the bars teaching the bartenders about those brands, talking them through, educating them on a category that was barely present in those bars, and then also as we started to grow and started to win some mindshare with them, we planned things that were for them and not just for those lead mixologists that are the ones that everyone goes after. You want your neighborhood bars, your neighborhood bartenders, you want that bar back to know about that brand because they are ultimately going to become your future bartenders. So you have to just take a broader approach than just the Julie Reiners of the world, who was one of my favorite people and was one of my downstairs neighbors when I was working for Illegal Mezcal. I love that woman, and she has built every best in show cocktail program in New York City. But you have to consider everyone else too, and that's how you'll do all the groundwork.
It's interesting what you just said there about not just the in-demand bartenders, but the neighborhood bartenders, but then also the bar backs. Made me think of a friend of mine who's also in beverage, though in a different category. His name is Dave Kleina, and he has a hydration company called O2 Hydration. And he told me that one of his winning strategies when getting into retail has been, look, you got to win over the buyer, of course, and then you got to meet with the manager of whatever location you're entering. But he said he would just go around and find literally every employee, no matter how lowly, and give them product and tell them about the product and hype the product to them. And he said they loved it because they often weren't actually getting paid attention to by a lot of the brands that were coming in. And, customers still ask them for recommendations, or they're involved in organizing the shelves, and it makes a big difference. So it's great to hear how you're thinking about this at a really, really ground level, and also just trying to find the people who are the influencers in the space, so to speak, who are also overlooked by everybody else.
And once we turned our attention to retail, we took a very similar approach to what you're saying your friend did. Because when you go into a store and you get upset because your product's not faced properly, it wasn't put on the right shelf, it's not on the floor at all. That's not going to happen to you when you've gone in and been respectful and educated the people in the store and included them in your process.
Yeah. Another thing I want to unpack a little bit is the neighborhood by neighborhood strategy here. I think a lot of people don't think about it that way, because if you're launching a CPG brand in any kind of crowded, I've been saying crowded category, but Illegal was coming out at a time, as you were saying, where mezcal wasn't as well known a category as perhaps it is now. So you still had an opportunity to define the category, but all the same, you're competing against tons of other alcohol brands and so on. I think a lot of people think, well, I got to just cover as much ground as possible, as fast as possible. Why the neighborhood by neighborhood approach?
The concentration helps. You want to be able to show resale as well. Like you want to have this turnover rate. We could do a whole nother podcast about how you need that to just prove your value and growth to your investors and show that velocity. And that's what's going to help as you concentrate in a neighborhood. Your dollar's going to go further. You have a very small staff that's going to be less stretched. And then the way we took it is that we looked in a neighborhood when we found accounts that we really won and established those as what we called lighthouse accounts. We then knew One, we knew New York City, and we know the way New Yorkers buy and the way they live is in their neighborhood. Once they drink in their neighborhood, they also shop in their neighborhood. So that's how we also chose our retail stores subsequent to that.
This story that you're telling me, I'm pairing in my head with a very different kind of category and presented in a somewhat different way, but it's the exact same thing. So I just want to share it with you and see what you think. I was having a conversation with Andrew Chen, who's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, because he had written this book that he called The Cold Start Problem. And the cold start problem was a solution to businesses starting in areas where the business has to create a network effect, right? So for those not familiar with the term, the network effect is the business or the product becomes more valuable the more people use it. So the example that he uses is Tinder. Tinder's only valuable because lots of people are using it. The user interface can be great, the algorithms can be great, but if you don't have a lot of people using it, what is the point of this product, right? And there's a lot of things like that just require the network effect. And he said that the mistake that companies make or that founders make when they're launching a company that requires a network effect is that they try to go really broad all at once to just try to get as many users as possible, which feels logical. But the thing is that not all users in a company that requires a network effect are equal. Because if you were to launch Tinder and your first 50 users are one person in every state in the United States, then that is not a useful product.
No.
You actually want those 50 people to be like in the same neighborhood. Because at that point, it actually kind of is useful because they can find each other and it'll start to grow. So the Tinder example carries because he said that the way they launched Tinder was on one college campus. Don't go nationwide, focus on one campus. Then the kids there will all find it really useful. And then you can go to another campus and another campus. And then you've got a region and then you go from there. And that really struck me as smart and counterintuitive because so many people just want to go big and broad. So here I'm hearing software and how you have to start really local, but then also product and how you have to start really local.
Absolutely, because we always talked about at Illegal, you can't build a brand without community. And community is your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It is a network. And that only makes sense to me. I mean, so you could apply that concept to any brand. Tinder is a brand. Illegal is a brand. My other brands are brands. When you're building a brand, I mean, you can create a product or you can build a brand. We were building brands.
Can you unpack that distinction for me as you've thought about it or seen it work really well?
We did create a product. We created a mezcal. Then we created a brand. The brand is Illegal. I have other products. There's one, the non-alcoholic product is called Como No. It means why not in Spanish. It's a caffeinated sparkling water. We actually are taking it to market in a very similar fashion to Illegal. We've launched here in New York City. We launched it in Brooklyn. We're going very small with it because we know that there are hundreds to thousands of clean energy beverages launched in market in the last 2 years. So the products, there's thousands of products, but we're creating a brand and a community. And so we're doing that in a specific location to build the network. And we have decided to do that in a differentiated route to market by doing it again through the bar scene. So we're taking it to the bar scene so we can once again win through the bartenders, the community. We can have those ambassadors promoting our community, promoting our network, and building that volume and that concentration.
So you're entering not just with the product and the brand, but also a specific use case because energy has a wide number of use cases, but you want to introduce it specifically as a mixer.
Not just a mixer.
Okay.
There's a few pieces to this. I guess the easiest way to go about it is talk about all its use cases. So in New York City, the easiest selling point for this to a bar is they all have space problems. And this is a one-can solution for many needs that they have for the current drinker. That is, it is a zero-alc product. So there's a non-alcoholic option. It is a mixer. It's also an energy drink. So it solves for several solutions there.
Take me one step back into that.
Sure.
That's an interesting thing. So in other words, you're identifying a specific pain point that your kind of middleman user here has, which is the space constraints, which is something that you know from your hospitality days. So then how do you start that conversation with them?
That's one conversation to start with, depending on the bar and what you think their needs are. But that was just for me to highlight the use cases for you. But absolutely. So you could take our one product, Como No. sparkling caffeinated sparkling water, 100 milligrams of caffeine, a little bit of L-theanine, 0 calories, 0 sugar. It's essentially a clean energy drink, a wellness beverage. It can take the place of the Red Bulls that are living back there behind the bar that really don't seem to suit today's consumer with all of the new drive towards wellness. So we can take the approach to the bar or the bar owner, because we have to get behind the bar first to do all the other things we've already talked about, to build community, and let them know that we know all the categories that are trending. And the categories that are trending is that consumers are drinking better, meaning they want cleaner products, right? So we have a clean product. We have a 0 alcohol product. We have a potential mixer product for your ranch waters or other types of beverages. We have a full mixology program built around it if somebody was interested in that. And then you can use this one product to solve for all of those needs for all of your varying consumers that are coming in the door.
That requires a lot of knowledge about the needs of the person that you're pitching.
Yes. And that is why it's good to be doing this again. We've had a lot of learnings from Illegal Mezcal. Myself and my 2 partners who have launched Como No, we are all veterans from Illegal. We are doing this as a second go around. And I've had people say to me, "Are you sure you want to do it again?" And I've said, absolutely, I want to do it again because I learned so much the first time. I don't know why somebody wouldn't want to do it again.
This could go in any number of directions, but maybe just like pick one or two. What I'm curious about is what mistakes you think you might be making now in launching this non-alc product had you not had the Illegal experience. Like, in other words, like, what are some of the things that you learned over there that were such big learnings that you now feel especially suited to win here?
Well, this is definitely a whole nother podcast because I handled all our fundraising, and it was definitely around fundraising, building a cap table, investor rights. It was definitely in that whole world. Simplicity of cap table is key. Like, just keep it simple, keep it clean as best that you can. Obviously, you need funding, right? You can get complicated really fast, and all money isn't equal, and all money is not good money, and all partners aren't good. There's a lot that goes into making the right decisions.
Right. Those are hard-won lessons from last time.
They're really tough.
As you reflect on what you learned from Illegal, what are the common mistakes you see new founders make in beverage that you
talk more about that specifically? And that is your distributor is not going to sell your product for you. They don't do it. It seems like that should be their job. They have a sales force. You really have to do it yourself. Until you reach a certain tipping point, you will be the one that is doing all the sales. You're going to be lucky to get into a decent distributor in the first place, and you will really be the one that's out there hitting the streets, you and whatever size team you can afford to have, and you really are the one that has to do all the groundwork. You can't rely on them for it. It's a very important thing. I've spoken to beverage founders who have said, I just thought I would create this beautiful thing, and once I got into a distributor, I would have won.
Right. Sure.
No, you just got started.
No, it's a terrible lesson that everyone has to learn in every form. I mean, from my background, it is that the book publisher will not sell the book for you. You have to sell every copy of it. It's like, why is there even a book publisher?
I'm sure it's the same story.
What would you do if you didn't have the route through the bars? If you were releasing a CPG product that wasn't carried in bars, it was just kind of traditional retail, how would you approach it? Or is this the reason why you've stayed in bar adjacent beverages?
I mean, that's my world. So I do think people should build their products in their own backyard. And my backyard is not necessarily locale, but it is channel for sure. Because I have had people ask, like, well, they live in North Carolina and they're trying to decide whether they're going to build their mezcal brand in Miami or New York City. I'm like, you're going to build it in North Carolina. Like, that's your backyard. That's what you should do. But I think, one of the things that we did with Como No, the non-alc beverage, which was very new for me to be in non-alc, because you do have broader capabilities, things that you can do that I couldn't do with alcohol brand. And so to test market it, because again, we are scrappy and we don't want to spend money, so we're doing it all ourselves. So when we formulated it, on our first formulation, we did a small run and we took it to Coachella and gave it all out and did all our own market survey, asked every single person, ourselves, personally, the founders, standing there, asking every person who drank it,
Did you tell them that you were the founders?
No.
Yeah.
And then took it back, reformulated, and renamed it, actually. It had a different name originally.
Huh.
And then did it again the next year
Mm-hmm.
and had it at South by and Coachella the next year and did it all over again and felt we were in a much better place, but still had to change a couple of things. So I'm just saying that to say that I think if I was launching a new product, if it was CPG still, I just think the festival network is fascinating to me. Every festival will tell you in advance because they want you to come and sign up to do a booth or whatever at their festival. You can get all the marketing data. You know where every single person is coming from, what their age is, what their demographic is. You know everything already. And so then you can go through and kind of figure out like how you want to test, who you're looking to test, and you can show up and do it there.
That's really smart. I want to go back to what you were talking about with Red Bull, because it sounds like you have a very specific message to bartenders about Red Bull, which is, hey, consumers at this point are looking for cleaner ingredients. They're not just looking for caffeine, for energy, which was really what Red Bull pioneered and for a long time had owned.
Mm-hmm.
And now it sounds like you're identifying a weakness in that strength, and there's an opportunity to enter with a different story.
Yes, absolutely. And it sounds like I'm attacking Red Bull, and we are. I mean, they pioneered lifestyle activation. They pioneered so many things. However, one thing I find very surprising is that, even all the way down to Walmart, they have reformulated and replanogrammed their beverage aisles to accommodate the demand for wellness.
Mm-hmm.
But when you walk into a bar in New York City, your only option in the energy category, or honestly for a non-alc in a can, unless you're looking at NA beers, is probably a Red Bull.
Right. And
it's really fascinating to me that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed in 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's just really stagnant to me. That's an interesting opportunity. That's a huge opportunity. That's a very, very stagnant piece of the beverage industry that I find it's opportunistic for us.
Yeah, well, right. There's no better word for it. And also, it's very interesting to hear you talk about this, because I think back to the setup that I gave for this episode, which is all about a crowded category. But it sounds like if you really know it well enough, then you can find the uncrowded parts of the crowded category. I mean, you're talking about a massive, massive opportunity in which people are there, they're consuming. They've got trusted guides in the bartenders. There hasn't been change in decades.
Exactly.
Do you believe that exists everywhere?
The Red Bull conundrum?
Yeah. Like, we call it the Red Bull conundrum. But in other words, like, let's say that I want to launch a bag of chips, and
everywhere across other categories.
Yeah. Like, do you feel like if you understand it well enough, that there are channels and opportunities that are actually uncrowded in crowded categories? And then my follow-up question would be, how do you recognize that?
I have an answer for both of those. I think the answer is absolutely yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you recognize it is by not sitting behind your computer 24 hours a day and being in your market. I don't know what your market is, whatever your market is. I mean, the second half when I said, I was talking about brands needing community, it's like brands aren't built behind a screen either. Like, brands aren't built from a spreadsheet. Yeah. Brands aren't built from behind a computer screen. And I think it would be the same. I don't know what category you would be in. Any CPG category, it's consumer consumption. You need to be the expert of every place the consumer is consuming whatever it is that you're producing for them to consume.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's the bar scene. I mean, I have this weird hobby about bars too. I love everything about them. It's not even that I drink that much anymore these days, but I have always a perpetual running list of bars in my head in different cities around the world that have just developed reputations, and I always want to know why. So you want to know what it is that's perfected, what's drawing the consumer to that place. And so in any space, there's going to be a reason a consumer wants something. And if that's your marketplace, you should know why. You should know all the whys. And then if you're in the market, like not some VP somewhere sitting in an office behind a computer, you should be able to observe when there's gaps, more than any research study should ever show you. I really think it's from being in the world.
And then I assume going out and testing a lot of hypotheses.
Yes. Then you have to test it, which is where ours, we have our budget ways of doing it. That's why I do it from our perspective. I've always been a startup person, an entrepreneur founder, and we go out to the festivals, we go out to the bar scenes, we go out to the consumer we're looking for directly, one-on-one. And I'm sure there's other ways in other goods.
What you're saying here also reminds me of a story, which I just want to tell you. This is the most simple and revelatory thing I've ever heard about what is required to make a brand stand out. I was talking to the president of Reebok, and he said that he tells his team that quality at this point has to be assumed, which is to say that the consumer just assumes that whatever they're going to buy is good. You can't compete on good anymore. You can't compete on quality because it's too easy to make quality at this point. His example was scissors. He's like, look, you can't start a company that sells scissors and market it as the sharpest pair of scissors. Every pair of scissors is the sharpest pair of scissors. It's too easy to make sharp scissors. So it's got to be about something else. The only way to stand out is to make it above and beyond the quality of the thing that you've created, which to him was story. This is about brand story. It's about brand connection. It's about telling your consumer that we understand you and we've built this just for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're going to assume that every competitor of yours is roughly the same quality, then the thing that they're going to evaluate you on is whether or not you seem like you are for them. So, number one, I wonder if you agree. And then number two, how do you think through how to signal to the consumer that in this crowded category, even if you've recognized this opportunity with the Red Bull conundrum, how you signal that it's for them?
I do agree. That's where brand story and, people lightly throw the word authenticity around. That's when they come to play. And I absolutely agree with that. And the way I have done it with the brands I've been associated with is we've always kind of worn our values on our chest to help build the community around the brands that we built. Illegal was a very socially, politically active brand. It was a way to communicate to our potential consumers what our value system was and what we stood for. That was what drew a certain type of consumer to us. And we're very proud to have that consumer and have them be part of our community.
Yeah. What are you doing with the non-alc brand? I mean, it sounds like you changed the name.
Mm-hmm.
So there was something that you heard about the original name that just wasn't.
Tell you.
Yeah, tell me what the original name was.
So the original name was Cafe No Sé.
Okay.
Cafe No Sé is the bar in Antigua, Guatemala that John Rexer owned, that he was workshopping his mezcal in, that he was creating. So it's the bar where all of us that were early days and created Illegal that we met. It's also known as the Bad Idea Factory.
Okay.
We've had bad ideas come out of there.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of alcohol there, so therefore a lot of bad ideas.
But 7 nights a week, it's never,
Right.
Anyway, we wanted to kind of keep that theme going, and we named the caffeinated water Cafe No Sé. Well, it turns out if you survey a lot of consumers in the U.S. and you hand them a black can, especially with liquid they don't see, and it says cafe on it, everyone assumes
coffee.
It's a coffee
Right.
product. It was a coffee product. We're like, yeah, that's not going to work. We loved it. We thought it was fantastic. We knew what it was.
Right.
It wasn't a good use of the name. It wasn't representative of the product, and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were just brainstorming. We knew what we wanted to stay in the world we had all developed products in, which was Mexico and Guatemala and Oaxaca. And our flavors are Latin themed and the product itself is. And so it's when we settled on Como No, which means why not? Because why not have caffeine and water?
And that's spelled Como No.
COMONO.
Como No.
No.
Got it. Do you worry that that's not known enough to a just purely English-speaking consumer?
I don't. I think I'm sure there are certain parts of the U.S. where that's probable. I believe I'll have to make sure you get some products. We did a good job of telling the story on the can, and it says Como No, and underneath of that it says why not with question marks, and then the story is why not have caffeine and water. It drives the marketing. It drives our basic messaging.
Yeah, it reminds me. What's the the chip brand starts with an X, Sochital. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw that, I thought there's no way to scale this because people
That's
don't know
a
how
tough
to
one.
pronounce the name, and they certainly aren't going to remember how to spell the name. And yet it is succeeding pretty significantly. Is there like a lesson here maybe about the counterintuitive nature of brand naming?
Well, I was adamant that it was definitely something very simple
Mm-hmm.
for a non-Spanish speaking American to say,
Yeah.
because for some reason everyone in the US can say Oaxaca now, but when we were first marketing Illegal Mezcal, no one could say it. It
Mm-hmm.
was Oaxaca, like no one could say it. And so I already spent 10 years teaching Americans how to say Oaxaca. I didn't want to spend another 10 years teaching them how to say something else.
Right.
So I would not have named my chips that word because I also have trouble saying that word. But we wanted it to be clean and simple and a phrase that we thought resonated, was common enough that especially in New York City, most New Yorkers would have probably heard someone say that.
Right.
Or it's at least easy to pronounce.
I mean, but you also had, you had a brand called Illegal, and we're pronouncing it correctly here, but I assume a lot of consumers just called it illegal.
They just call it illegal and they spell it with 2 L's.
Right. And that's
And
fine.
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Right.
Yeah, it's fine.
So yeah, what else do you think you've learned from the Illegal experience about crafting that brand so that people can like understand and feel a part of it? Are there things that you see people in the marketplace generally stumble on? I, for example, often see people make the cafe mistake that you were describing, in that I think so much of the packaging, especially in early stage CPG, the language comes from the founder, or the language comes from the founder's community, where there could be phrasing that's really familiar to the person who's building the product, but is completely unfamiliar to everyone else. I love, for example, the transition from Mother, which called itself apple cider vinegar, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
gross name, and nobody's ever heard of apple cider vinegar, to now Poppy, which I think calls itself like a new kind of soda,
Yep.
or maybe Olipop calls it. I can't remember. It's all scrambled.
Yeah,
But
those
anyway,
are good stories.
yeah, but they shifted away from this language that was really focused on a very niche community and wasn't going to scale,
Right.
to something that was far more broadly applicable. And I'm curious, like, how you have navigated that while also taking some, I would say at least slight risk choices in kind of unfamiliar pronunciation of the word illegal for a mass audience. Como no, like, these are interesting choices you're making.
With the population in the US, I feel that we're going to be reaching close to 50%, I believe, by 2030 of a Hispanic population in our
Right.
country. So I think that we're really targeting towards the majority.
Yeah.
And they actually, over the Latino community in the US, over indexes in the purchasing of energy drinks. So
that's interesting.
yes, we knew where we wanted to be from a creative standpoint, but there's actually a significant amount of marketing research to support our choices.
Yeah, which also then speaks to the uncrowded part of a crowded category once again, isn't it?
Yes, because there are a couple others since we have launched that have also launched that are kind of going to market in a similar way with the Latin theme or the Mexican theme or a Mexican name, but they are definitely going traditional grocery retail, not the same route to market that we are.
The news in the energy beverage space right now is, as we record here in March of 2026, is Costco rolling out a Kirkland product that looks exactly like Celsius, and then putting it on the shelf right next to Celsius. What does that tell you about the state of the energy drink market right now? And then how does it make you feel about your own go-to-market decisions?
That's what a generic is, right? Like when you go to Walgreens and you buy acetaminophen or ibuprofen instead of Tylenol or Advil, I think that just means the category's matured. Like, it's clearly here to stay. Energy is a permanent beverage category now. I think 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been accepted as the case. That's one sign.
Yeah.
Obviously, it means clearly there's time for innovation and new winners. And Celsius was one at one point.
Yeah, sure was.
And now there's time for new ones.
I mean, if you look back at the history of Celsius, It's pretty fascinating. I mean,
Absolutely.
that brand went through a major evolution.
Yes,
The
it did.
original cans don't look anything like
Mhm.
this very clean, sophisticated version that
Mhm.
Costco, frankly, just knocked off. So that tells you something about where the category has come. And it was interesting that your answer started with, well, that's what a generic is, right? So in other words, am I hearing that you're seeing, look, in some ways, the major players in this category, whether it's Red Bull that has owned the bar market, or it's Celsius that has really dominated the retail market for a long time, you could argue being calcified into something that either now feels generic or is literally getting knocked off by a generic, and yet that's not what consumers are always going to want. Consumers are going to then start to see those things maybe as more commodity, and they're going to take more notice of brands that are coming with a fresher take and a fresher perspective on the category.
Absolutely. I think they'll just take more notice of the fresher brands. I mean, Monster, Celsius, Red Bull, they're just now equivalent to Coke and Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
And, every 5 years, we see a big revelation from Coke or Pepsi. New Coke, new Pepsi, new this, new that. They're still Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah. You've been in alcohol for a long time, and you also now are in the energy space. To make a product is to consume it. And so you are you don't sleep a lot.
No. No, I don't sleep. I sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night. I
Yeah.
don't know how that works. It just works.
Yeah.
And I drink lots and lots of caffeine. That's what we were talking about.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a bit of a problem.
Like a shocking amount of caffeine.
I know. And I don't think I realized it until we were laying it out at an Uncharted dinner in Austin, actually. I was just having the conversation.
Yeah.
And people were like, you can't possibly drink that much caffeine. I do. I drink a lot of caffeine. But Kamado only has 100 milligrams of caffeine in it. So
Which
that is half of what's in a Celsius.
Oh, okay.
And it's just above the average cup of coffee in the U.S.
Why formulate it at that level? There's probably some specific research into that.
We know for the use cases we wanted it for, we feel that if you wanted to be able to enjoy a couple of them in a day, you're still at safe levels. We formulated it and test marketed, as we said, at Coachella and South by Southwest. Illegal Mezcal was a big music brand. We did a lot of festival worked with a lot of musicians, a lot of the people who worked the behind the scenes support for all of that to go on. Those people also want to enjoy and have things to drink all day. And the music scene has changed dramatically. Like, people don't drink on stage any longer, alcohol products, things like that. And so we knew we were formulating something we wanted to also be a lifestyle brand, something people could carry in their hand, have at the bar. You could drink 2 or 3 of these and it would be fine.
Right.
That was part of the reason. And also, you can use it as a mixer. It's not going to be an extreme amount of caffeine.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to feel your way out in the category to figure out exactly where you wanted to land there?
We did, and we
looked
looked at there's a lot of research on recommended caffeine levels from like some of the European health boards. There seemed to be much more specific recommendations available from some of the European health communities, and specifically recommending no more than 400 milligrams a day, which, yes, I drink about 3 times that. But, and so our thought process was, especially for conversation, it's half of a Celsius. It's equal to 1 cup of coffee, which is about 95 milligrams these days. And you could drink 4, according to the European health recommendations. And you want people to drink more than 1 of your products.
Right.
If they can.
Right. All right, amazing. So right now it is hyper-local, you said.
Yes. We're launched in New York. We're in Brooklyn, parts of Manhattan. And then we are looking to expand already in Texas, most likely. That's where we also have a lot of deep bar scene connections. And then also likely our other third market's going to be Georgia.
Why Georgia?
Atlanta, same. Just big. We have the cities that we have deep hospitality connections in, and have a lot of well-known hospitality restaurant groups.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, we didn't actually talk about Megan Thee Stallion. I know you were involved in the launch of that product.
Yes.
What's an interesting shift that you took in building a brand from scratch versus building a brand off of a huge celebrity where she already has the presence.
Yeah.
And so I imagine that the brand storytelling and positioning is like a totally different approach.
Yes, it is. And when I stepped in to help Rock Nation and Megan with that project, they did already, they had created it, and they had the bottle, the liquid, the packaging. There's a little bit of hangups in getting production, glass, Mexico hangups. So I stepped in with them in a much more operational role rather than a brand role to get the product to market and then into distributors and fully launched. And that is something else people in Bev who have not done Bev Alc before, I don't think they realize the amount of work it takes to just launch in your distributor with pricing and compliance and things of all that nature. So I spent their first year with them, which was all last year, getting them fully launched in the U.S. And it was a great project. They're wonderful people to work with.
Yeah.
And the bottle's stunning. It's beautiful. So it's Chicas Divertidas is the brand.
Right.
It's amazing.
Does a brand like that get sold to Megan's fans full stop? Like is a plan with a brand like that to just fulfill that market demand? Or is a plan for a brand like that to ultimately grow way beyond her, maybe even not even be fully associated with her at some point because there's just a larger market opportunity. Like I always wonder that about these celebrity brands. There's an entry point. She's got everybody's attention. She can tell them about it and she can sell it. But if she's your only sales channel, that's a really great sales channel. But also she's going to have some other things to sell as well. And so you probably have to live beyond her own star power. What's the approach there?
There's two different ways to go about it. Megan Thee Stallion's tequila brand is certainly fully built on her and her reputation. The slight difference with that versus someone else, maybe like Matthew McConaughey, who has a tequila. The difference with someone like Megan is the extension of her is nightclub. So there is a whole channel that is an extension of her celebrityness. So I see that as less of a weakness as it could be for a different type of celebrity. I'm not picking on Matthew McConaughey, but as someone who is an actor versus someone who is the type of star that Megan is, she does have a full channel behind her through nightclub, concert venue, festival network, like all of that. So I think that's less of a weakness with the brand being fully built out around Megan and her fan base, because then the extension of that is an entire channel of business. Right.
It's interesting to think about the celebrity as also a channel ecosystem.
And she is a channel ecosystem from that perspective.
Yeah. All right. Michelle, this has been so fascinating. I'll tell you one final thing, which is that I recently sat down with Megan, and the thing that she said to me, that just is the thing I will be repeating, was we were talking about social media and how to utilize it in a way that actually grows your business. And she said the important thing to understand is the distinction between being seen and understood. She said a lot of musicians can get seen. It's easy to get seen. It's easy to get a lot of views. But views don't really mean anything. You can rack up millions of views on a video, but nobody remembers it 5 minutes later. So to be seen, even though that seems like the goal in an attention economy, to be seen is easy. To be understood, to build that long-term connection with people, to have them understand you as a full person and follow your journey, is the actual key to longevity. And as we close this conversation about competing in a crowded category, I just realized how much that applies to product distribution too, because you can get a product on a lot of shelves and have it be seen, but unless it's understood by the bartenders and why they would recommend that to others, understood by the consumer and how they see this brand as more than just a product, but also as a story, like that is actually the thing that is ultimately going to carry the day and also help you break through. What do you think?
I agree with that fully. Absolutely, because someone has to have a reason to pick it up, take it off the shelf, right? And it's not always just going to be how it looks, because like you said, they're looking at there's hundreds of things in front of them. And as the story you mentioned from Reebok, people just assume things are good.
Yeah.
They don't assume anything on that shelf is going to be bad.
So it's got to be about more than that. Well, Michelle Ivey, thank you so much for joining us on the Uncharted podcast. I'm going right back to camera here to say we will see you at a future Uncharted event. Please tell others about this podcast so that we can spread the great word about all the genius things that Michelle and all the other Uncharted founders have to say on this show. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.